Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
भैया आप म्यूट पे।
Oh, so I was on mute all along. You could hear the chanting though, right?
Yes, we could hear the chanting, but not the end part. But that's fine.
Okay, all right, good. Yeah, looks like it got muted. Anyways, Hare Krishna. So,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Krishna Hare Krishna Harina ji.
Hare Krishna, Bhaiya. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna.
Mr. Soham is there today. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So, Krishna Sikshan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
So, welcome back after the long weekend. Now, let's forget what we did during the long weekend. And let's get to Srimad Bhagavatam. So, हम लोग पढ़ रहे हैं श्लोक 35th of chapter 6th canto 3. या तो इसमें जैसा कि सबको पता है मैत्रेय मुनि आंसर कर रहे हैं महात्मा विदुर के क्वेश्चंस का, राइट? So the original questions of the manifestation, and then we read, of course, right, how everything came in existence, how all the 5 elements came into existence, right? Akash, Vayu, Jal, Prithvi, Agni. And what do they represent? How the deity, how the controlling deities came together, all the devatas came together, how Man, Buddhi, Ahankar came in existence, how the Virat Swarup was explained by Maitreya Muni to Mahatma Vidur, and of course, you know, we also understood that. And then Varnashram was explained, right? How Brahman one gets into existence, right, from the mouth of Lord Shri Vishnu. Then how Kshatriya came in existence from the arms, then from the thighs is Vaishya, and then from the legs the Shudra. But the important part is it doesn't matter which family you are born in, it's all by what are we doing and what are we inclined towards. So if you are inclined towards Vedic knowledge, it's mentioned that then you can be Brahman. But even the Shudras are in the service. If you are doing service to the Lord Sri Krishna, that's the highest perfection of life. Yeah. So that's how the Varnashram was explained. And essentially, last slok which we read, what Maitreya Muni is saying is that who can estimate or measure the transcendental time, work, and potency of the Jagnetic form? So even though we talked about the Virat Swarup, you know, earlier even we read that, you know, how Virat Swarup is existing into 14 planets, into all these universes, and so on and so forth. And we can imagine, but what Maitreya Muni himself, who is supposed to be the biggest Jnani, is saying that, you know, Kahe Shraddha Dupar Kartu is basically who can estimate or measure the transcendental time, work, and potency of the Jagnetic form manifested by the internal potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Virat Swarup itself is not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? Supreme Personality of Godhead manifested the Virat Swarup by his internal potency. Yeah. And then, so this is what Virat Swarup and Lord is exhibiting to all the controlling deities, all the devatas. And where else the Virat Swarup was depicted by Lord Sri Krishna? Where else did we see the reading of the Virat Swarup?
On the battleground?
Mahabharat.
In the battlefield of Mahabharata, right?
Battlefield,
We
yeah.
read that in Bhagavad Gita where Lord Sri Krishna shows the Virat Swarup to Arjun, and Arjun doesn't see beginning and anything, and at the end he says, you know what, I want to just see that Shyam Sundar form, right? We remember that. So we'll continue reading from here. Let's read the Shlok 36. Siksha Prabhuji. Siksha Prabhu. Okay, I think people disconnected. Yeah, Nisha, you want to read?
Is he ready?
I think उनका connection शायद नहीं हो रहा है.
Okay.
Can you hear us, Siksha Prabhu? No, maybe Nisha, you read. No.
Tathapi kirtaya myanga yathamati yathashrutam kirtim hareha swam satkurta kiramanya vidasatim. In spite of my inability, whatever I have been able to hear from the spiritual master and whatever I could assimilate, I am now describing a glorification of the Lord by pure speech, for otherwise my power of speaking would remain unchaste.
Hare Krishna. So, in spite of my inability, who is saying this? Whose inability? Who is saying this?
Maitreya.
Maitreya Muni, right? So Maitreya Muni is right now describing to Mahatma Vidur, but he is saying that in spite of, and he is a big Jnani, right? And he is saying that in spite of my inability, whatever I have been able to hear and assemble from the spiritual master and whatever he heard, remember when Lord Shri Krishna was speaking to Uddhavji, and he's saying whatever he could assimilate, he is describing in glorification of the Lord by pure speech. He is saying that he needs to really glorify the Lord now by the speech, because if he does not do that, it doesn't matter how much knowledge he has described, what will happen? His power of speaking would remain unchaste, right? Unpure. So to purify the speech, saying the glorification of the Lord is important. Yeah, that's what even Maitreya Muni himself is saying, and very nice. I mean, those purports are really great. Let's read that, Mr. Soham.
Material's statement is then, in order to avoid unchaste conscious activities, he was wrong to describe the unlimited glories of the Lord, although he did not have the ability to describe them perfectly. This glorification of the Lord is not a product of research, but the result of a hearing submissively from the authority of the spiritual master. It is also not possible to repeat all that one has heard from his spiritual master, but one can narrate as far as possible by one's honest endeavor. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. And this is so simple, right? We have again and again heard Hari Katha Ananta, right? Hari Anant, Hari Katha Ananta. Like, who can really describe, his pastimes? Is essentially what is being mentioned here, Shivam.
It does not matter whether the Lord's glories are fully explained or not. One must attempt to engage one's bodily, mental, and verbal activities in the transcendental glorification of the Lord. Otherwise, such activities will remain unchaste and impure. The existence of conditioned soul can be purified only by the method of engaging mind and speech in the service of the Lord. The three Dandi sannyasi of the Vaishnav school accepts three rods, representing the vow to engage in the service of the Lord with body, mind, and speech, whereas the Eka Dandi sannyasi takes the vow to become one with the Supreme. Since the Lord is the Absolute, there is no distinction between him and his glories. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. The important fact mentioned in this paragraph is this: the existence of the conditioned soul, which is what we are, right? We are conditioned souls. How can we be purified? Can be purified only by the method of engaging mind and speech in the service of the Lord, right? And how do we engage our mind and speech in the service of the Lord? What's the mechanism?
By chanting.
By chanting, right? So that's one mechanism. That's why we start with chanting, so we can engage our mind and the speech, the body, yeah, in the service of the Lord. That's the highest perfection. We have read that again and again. That's the highest perfection. That's why we start with the chanting process, right? That's so important, right? Shravanam, Kirtanam, chanting, right? Then the other way is what we are doing right now in this, in the service of the Lord. This is what we are doing. Like Srimad Bhagavatam reading is another way. Yeah. So like this, there are like 9 different ways described how can we purify our conditioned soul by devotional service. Yeah. So what is the use of chanting? The chanting is the one which will purify our soul and connects us to the Supreme Lord directly. That's the beauty of chanting. Yeah. And that's what is mentioned here. So let's read this. Ajay.
Glories of the Lord as chanted by the Vaishnava sannyasis are as substantial as the Lord himself. And thus, while glorifying the Lord, the devotee becomes one with him into transcendental interest, although he remains eternally a transcendental servitor. The simultaneously one and different position of the devotee makes him eternally purified, and thus his life becomes a complete success. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. What an important fact mentioned here. So very nice. Cool. Let's read the next shloka. Siksham Prabhu, can you hear us now?
एकांतलाभम वचसोनु पुंसाम सुश्लोक कमले गुणवादमाहु सुतैषः विरधिरूपाकृतायां कथा सुधाया यमुपासं प्रयोगम. The highest perfection gain of humanity is the engaged in discussion of the activities and glories of the pious actor. Such activities are so nicely arranged in writing by the greatly learned sages that the actual purpose of the year is served just by being near them.
Krishna, yeah. Says the highest perfection gain of the humanity is to engage in the discussions of the activities and glories of the pious actor. Yeah, the Supreme Personality of God. Ekant labham vachsonu punsam. That's the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah, and it's already arranged by greatly learned sages, right? Like Vedvyaji has created this Srimad Bhagavatam for the benefit of all of us so that we can read. And it's saying that that is the right purpose of the year, right? Kaan ke fayde kya hai? Like we can keep hearing so many things. But if we hear katha like Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and the pastimes of the Lord, that's the real use of the ears. Now let's read this. Shivam.
The word guna vadam is significant because the qualities of the Lord and his activities and pastimes are subject matter for discussions of devotees. Rishi, like Maitreya, is certainly not interested in discussing anything pertaining to mundane qualities. Yet he says that the highest perfectional stage of transcendental realization is to discuss the Lord's activities. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, right? So why it is mentioned that Maitreya Muni is not interested? Only because Maitreya Muni is the Jnani, right? He is the Jnani, and then, but he was saying that ultimately, the transcendental realizations, perfectional stages, Lord's activities, Lord's Gungan. Yeah. So continue reading this, Tarun.
Srila Jiva Goswami therefore concludes that topics regarding the transcendental activities of the Lord are far beyond the transcendental realization of Kaivalya happiness. These transcendental activities of the Lord are so arranged in writing by the great sages that simply by hearing of those narrations, one becomes perfectly self-realized. The proper use of the ear and the tongue is also achieved. Srimad Bhagavatam is one of such great literatures, and the highest perfectional state of life is attained simply by hearing and reciting its contents. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. I mean, look, it's being mentioned very clearly here by none other than, like Srila Prabhupada and the great, like Srila Jiva Goswami, they are saying this. And what happens by hearing those narrations, one becomes perfectly self-realized, right? So if we start progressing, chanting, and, start progressing in devotional service, that's the state we can also achieve. So we have some hope. Yeah. Sachin?
आत्मनो अवसितो वत्स महिमा कविना दिना संवत्स सहस्रान्ते धिया yoga vipakkaya. O my son, the original poet Brahma, after mature meditation for 1000 celestial years, could know only that the glories of the Supreme Soul are inconceivable. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. What Maitreya Muni is saying is the original poet. Who is the original poet? The original creator, Lord Brahma. Yeah. And we know that Lord Brahma did the meditation for 1000 celestial years. Does anyone know what a celestial year is? How long is that? One celestial year. Do we know how long is that?
10,000 years of earth. One day is 10,000 earth year, if I'm not forgetting.
Yeah. Now, the celestial year, they say, right? The one celestial year is almost 2,160,000 years, the solar years, the solar year. One celestial year, right? 2,160,000. So you multiply it again by 1,000. Yeah. That's how long a meditation Lord Brahma did. And after doing that meditation, Lord Brahma is saying he could only, the glories of the Supreme Soul are inconceivable. Even then he could not imagine, Lord Brahma himself. So what to think about us? We get into so many arguments and so many discussions and hey, who is God, who is Lord, what's going on, what is this nature, science, all that. But Lord Brahma, after meditating for 2,160,000 times 1,000 years, he could not conceive, what the Supreme Soul is, who the Supreme Lord is. I mean, he knew what the Supreme Lord is, but then he could not conceive his glories. So very, very interesting, yeah. And those purports are really great. So that's why we are reading. It gives us a lot of knowledge base. Yeah. So let's read this. Ravi.
It is said in the Brahma Samhita that the mental speculator may fly through the sky of speculation with the velocity of the mind or the wind for thousands of millions of years, and still he will find inconceivable. The devotees, however, do not waste time in such vain searching after knowledge of Supreme, but they submissively hear the glories of the Lord from the bona fide devotees. Thus, they transcendently enjoy the process of hearing and chanting. Hare Krishna.
Chanting, yeah. And let's continue reading. Sanilji.
The Lord approves of the devotional activities of the devotees or Mahatmas, and he says, Mahatmanas tu me partha devin prakritim drishtya asritaha bhajanti ananya manaso janatva utadim abhyayam satatam kritya yatyanto mam yatantata cha druddha brataha namastasyai cha mam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. Bhagavatam 9.13-14. The pure devotees of the Lord take shelter of the para prakriti, the internal potency of the Lord, called Lakshmi Devi, Sita Devi, Srimati Radharani, or Srimati Rukmani Devi, and thus they become actual Mahatma or great souls. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So this is what is from Bhagavad Gita 9.30 and 14. The pure devotees of the Lord take shelter of the para prakriti, or the internal potency. What is the internal potency of the Lord? Is Radharani or Lakshmi Devi. Yeah. So let's continue reading this. Rinaji.
Mahatmas are not fond of indulging in mental speculations, but they actually take to the devotional service of the Lord without the slightest deviation. Devotional service is manifested by the primary process of hearing and chanting about the activities of the Lord. This transcendental method practiced by the Mahatmas gives them sufficient knowledge of the Lord because if the Lord can at all be known to some extent, it is only through the means of devotional service and no other way. One may go on speculating and waste the valuable time of his human life, but that will not help anyone to enter into the precincts of the Lord. The Mahatmas, however, are not concerned with knowing the Lord by mental speculation because they enjoy hearing about his glorious activities in his transcendental dealings with his devotees or with the demons. The devotees take pleasure in both and are happy in this life and the life after. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. So basically saying, don't waste your time in a lot of speculation and discussing, right? Even Lord Brahma in one celestial year, which is, how big is one celestial year? Just talked about 2,160,000 years. Yeah. And that's 1,000 celestial year. That's called Devi years. Lord Brahma still said that Lord's glories are inconceivable. So the most important method it says is that only through the means of devotional service, and then we have read before that by the grace of his Supreme Lord, he will reveal himself. Yeah. So nice. Jitendra.
Hare Krishna. Tato bhagavato maya nipi mohini yat sarvam satmana varta naveda kyumta pare. The wonderful potency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is bewildering even to the jugglers. That potency is unknown even to the self-sufficient Lord, so is certainly unknown to others. Hare Krishna.
Yeah, so it's certainly unknown. Ved kyumta pare. More. Nisha.
यतो अप्राप्य न्यवर्तन्त वाचश्च मनसा सह अहं चान्य इमे देवास्तस्मै भगवते नमः. Words, mind, and ego, with their respective controlling demigods, have failed to achieve success in knowing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, we simply have to offer our respectful obeisances unto him as a matter of sanity. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, what Maitreya Muni is saying is even the demigods who controls our ego, our mind, our words, and all other controlling deities, right, have failed to achieve success in that. What is we should do? Maitreya Muni is saying is Evastme Bhagavate Namaha. We should offer our respectful obeisances and get into the devotional service. And a nice purport, like it says, Shivam, would you read?
Unless one relishes transcendental joy, naturally one will come back from his speculations and concocted conclusions because he will see them as neither factual nor enjoyable. The devotees can at least know that the absolute truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vishnu, as the Vedic hymns confirm, Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sada Pasyanti Suraya. Bhagavad Gita 15.15 also confirms this fact. Vedais cha sarvayar aham eva vedya. By culture of Vedic knowledge, one must know Lord Krishna and should not falsely speculate on the word aham or I. The only method of understanding the supreme truth is devotional service, as stated in Bhagavad Gita 18.55. Bhaktya mam abhi janati yavan yas jasmi tatvada. Hare Krishna.
Krishna. Yeah. Tarun?
Only by devotional service can one know that the ultimate truth is the personality of Godhead and that Brahman and Paramatma are only his partial features. This is confirmed in this verse by the great sage Maitreya. With devotion, he offers his sincere surrender, Nama, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavati. One has to follow in the footsteps of great ages and devotees like Maitreya and Vidura, Maharaj Parikshit and Sukdev Goswami, and engage in the transcendental devotional service of the Lord if one would know his ultimate feature, which is above Brahman and Paramatma. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, so as you can see, a very important fact is mentioned here that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is even above Brahma. A lot of us people are trying to know what the Brahma is, and even Paramatma, Atma related to Paramatma, right? Which we know the Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, but says the personality of Godhead is the ultimate truth. Yeah, Lord Sri Krishna. So, and thus this ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport of the third canto, 6th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled Creation of the Universal Form, described by Maitreya Muni to Mahatma Vidur. Bolo Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. So nice, we completed 6th chapter now. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. Let's, we only have 2 minutes actually, as usual. So let's do the Mangala Aarti Darshan from Mayapur temple of this morning. So it's a morning in India. That's what we'll see. Yeah. So Hare Krishna.
Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna